In this video, we're taking a look back at the 15 biggest horror movies released in theaters in 2023. 2023 was another huge year for horror, so let's check it out.
Hello everyone, it's time to play a game.
Eeny,
Let's play a game.
meeny,
I think we have to play the game.
miny.
I'll do it.
Your time has run out. It's time to die.
This looks like a bite.
Let's eat.
Let's eat. I got a gun.
That's why I'm gonna shoot you in the...
I thought we were having a conversation.
Talk to me.
Don't be scared.
It's okay to be scared. I'm scared too.
There's no such thing as monsters. You need to grow up.
Technically, they're animatronics. We called him Dracula.
Dracula.
I can still feel something following us.
You should probably run.
Prepare to have your mind blown. Model 3 generative android. Megan for short.
January 6 brought us the first big horror release of the year, Blumhouse's Megan. Megan is a sci-fi horror film about an artificially intelligent doll who develops self-awareness and becomes homicidal toward anyone who comes between her and her human companion. Thanks to TikTok sharing Megan's signature dance from the trailer, Megan became a social media sensation before the film was even released. To date, the hashtag Megan has over 3.5 billion views. This viral buzz translated to huge box office numbers, as the film grossed over $181 million worldwide with a budget of only $12 million. It's the third highest grossing horror film of 2023 domestically. Megan was also loved by critics. Of the 15 films in this video, Megan had the second highest Rotten Tomatoes score and the second highest Metacritic score.
This isn't like any other ghost face.
March 10th brought us the latest film in the Ghostface saga, Scream 6. Set approximately 1 year after the event of 2022's Scream, Scream 6 follows a new Ghostface killer who begins targeting the survivors of the Woodsboro murders in New York City. Scream 6 was the first film in the franchise to not feature star Neve Campbell, who decided not to return due to a salary offer she felt was beneath her value to the franchise. The film was a hit nonetheless. Domestically, it was the second highest grossing horror film of 2023, and the highest grossing film in the franchise, but worldwide it's third behind the first two films. Scream 6 also did fairly well with critics and audiences. It even won Best Movie at 2023's MTV Movie Awards. I had no idea that was still a thing.
But I prefer the challenge of an exorcist's soul.
April 14th saw the release of two competing horror films that both got their asses kicked by Super Mario Bros. The Pope's Exorcist stars Russell Crowe as Father Gabriel Amorth, chief exorcist of the Vatican, as he investigates a young boy's terrifying possession. Father Gabriel was actually a real person who apparently was a real exorcist for the Pope. There's actually footage of this guy doing exorcisms. I feel like this movie isn't a very faithful adaptation of the source material. Critic and audience scores were generally unimpressive for The Pope's Exorcist. The movie did poorly at the domestic box office, but fared a little better overseas. However, months later it ended up being a huge hit on Netflix for some reason, so a sequel has already been announced.
Bring in innocent victims.
Renfield is an action comedy horror film inspired by characters from the 1897 novel Dracula by Bram Stoker. Set in modern-day New Orleans, the film centers around Dracula's tortured henchman Renfield, who longs to be free from his toxic vampire overlord. Renfield's main draw is Dracula himself, played by legendary actor Nick Cage, who actually shaved his teeth down to be able to wear a special set of custom Dracula fangs. Audiences generally seem to like this film. Of the 15 movies in this video, it ranks 6th in IMDb rating and 3rd among Google users. Despite all this, and Cage's commitment to the role, this movie bombed hard. With a budget of $65 million, Renfield only grossed $26 million worldwide.
Mummy's with the maggots now.
On April 21st, Evil Dead Rise hit theaters. Evil Dead Rise is the 5th film in the Evil Dead film franchise, moving the action out of the woods and into a high-rise apartment in the city, where a family tries to survive as deadites begin possessing their loved ones. The film was originally set to premiere on the streaming service HBO Max, but after positive test screenings, Warner Brothers decided to release the film in theaters. And good thing they did, because this was a surprise hit for Warner Brothers, grossing over $146 million worldwide on a budget of under $20 million. It's the highest grossing film in the franchise by $47 million. It was also pretty successful with critics and audiences. Of the 15 movies in this video, it has the 4th best Rotten Tomatoes score, the 3rd best IMDb rating, and the 3rd best Metacritic score. However, it has the 2nd worst score among Google users, because Google users are idiots apparently.
JD, there's something in my room.
June 2nd brought us The Boogeyman, about a supernatural entity that preys on families and feeds on their suffering. The film is based on a Stephen King short story that first appeared in the March 1973 issue of Cavalier magazine. Apparently, a lot of Stephen King's early stories were published in nudie magazines for some reason. The Boogeyman was originally planned to be released on the streaming service Hulu, but just like Evil Dead Rise, it was changed to a theatrical release after positive test screenings. There was nothing really exciting to say about this movie's performance. Every stat, from box office to audience reception, is about as mid as you can get. It did okay at the box office, audiences thought it was fine. It is the 12th highest grossing Stephen King film adaptation of all time, and the 2nd highest grossing film of all time based on a Stephen King short story, so that's something, I guess.
Refuse to play, and she dies.
The Blackening is a comedy slasher about a group of black friends who reunite for a Juneteenth weekend getaway, only to find themselves trapped in a remote cabin with a twisted killer. It plays off the trope that the black character is always the first to die in a horror movie, but what happens when everyone is black? It's based on a 2018 short comedy film of the same name by Chicago-based comedy group Threepeat. Worldwide, this was the lowest grossing film on this list, but because it was made for only $5 million, it still can be considered a success. Critics seem to like it as well, as it had the 3rd best Rotten Tomatoes score of the 15 films in this video. The 5th entry in the Insidious franchise, Insidious: The Red Door, was released on July 7th. Helmed by star Patrick Wilson in his directorial debut, the film is a direct sequel to Insidious 2, continuing the story of the Lambert family as they uncover repressed memories of the demon haunting their family. The film was a huge hit at the box office, grossing over $189 million worldwide, making it the highest grossing film in the series. It debuted at number 1, embarrassing Disney by knocking their $300 million Indiana Jones sequel out of the top spot. The Red Door was made for only $16 million. Despite the film's financial success, it seems like a lot of people absolutely hated it. Among the 15 films, it was 13th on Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb, and the worst rated movie with Google users.
Put your hand on it. Now say, talk to me.
Talk to Me entered the chat on July 27th. This Australian supernatural film tells the story of a group of teenagers who discover that they are able to contact spirits using a mysterious severed and embalmed hand, until one of them takes things too far. This film was written and directed by YouTubers Danny and Michael Philippou of the YouTube channel Raka Raka. The movie was a surprise hit, raking in $92 million worldwide on a $4.5 million budget. It became A24's highest grossing horror film and 2nd highest grossing film overall of all time. Of the 15 movies we're covering here, Talk to Me had the highest Rotten Tomatoes score with critics at 94% and the highest Metacritic score at 76. Of the 15 films, it was also the highest rated movie on IMDb with a 7.1 rating.
Did you see the size of that bloody thing?
The Last Voyage of the Demeter sailed into theaters on August 11. This period piece is an adaptation of The Captain's Log, a chapter from the 1897 novel Dracula by Bram Stoker. It tells the story of a cargo ship traveling from Transylvania to England, unaware that Dracula is hidden among the crates. Of the 15 films in this list, Last Voyage was ranked dead last in domestic box office with a puny $13 million total gross. It made $20 million worldwide on a $45 million budget. Between this film and Renfield, Universal released 2 Dracula movies this year, and they both bombed hard.
I think there's something here that's not meant to be.
The Nun 2 arrived on September 8th. It's a sequel to 2018's The Nun, and the latest film in the Conjuring universe. Set 4 years after the first Nun movie, Sister Irene once again comes face to face with Valak, the demon nun. Critics and audiences generally like this one better than the first, and while it didn't quite match the box office take of the first Nun, this sequel still did pretty well, particularly worldwide, where it was the second highest grossing horror film of the year. Outside of the US and Canada, The Nun 2 was actually the highest grossing horror film internationally in 2023. September 27th saw the return of Jigsaw in Saw X. Set between the events of Saw and Saw 2, this 10th installment of the Saw franchise features the return of villain John Kramer, who travels to Mexico for experimental cancer treatment. But when he discovers the entire operation is a scam, he gets payback on his scammers Jigsaw style. Saw X pulled in a respectable $53 million at the domestic box office, the best showing for a Saw film since Saw 5 15 years earlier. It has the highest Rotten Tomatoes score among critics of the entire franchise, and of the 15 films in this video, Saw X has the second best IMDb user rating.
God played a trick on you.
October 6 marked the release of the first Exorcist film in 19 years, The Exorcist Believer. Intended as a direct sequel to the original Exorcist, this one features a single father who has demon problems when his daughter and her best friend get possessed. In 2021, it was announced that director David Gordon Green had been hired to reboot the Exorcist franchise with a trilogy of new films. He was hired based on the success of 2018's Halloween reboot. They clearly hadn't seen Halloween Ends yet. This movie had the worst luck. It was originally supposed to come out on October 13, but then Taylor Swift decided she wanted to release her little concert film on that same day, and Exorcist Believer producer Jason Blum was like, nope, forcing him to move Believer up a week. Exorcist Believer went on to make $136 million worldwide on a $30 million budget, making it the second highest grossing film in the franchise behind the original. Normally this would be pretty good news, except Universal paid a ridiculous $400 million for the rights to make this trilogy of Exorcist films. $400 million across 3 films comes out to about $133 million per movie, just for the rights. That's not counting the $30 million production budget or marketing costs, for a franchise that hasn't had a box office hit in 50 years. To make matters worse, people hated this movie. Of the 15 movies in this video, Exorcist Believer had the lowest Rotten Tomatoes score among critics and the worst IMDb user rating, which means people are going to be less likely to go back for seconds or thirds.
Welcome to Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria.
On October 27th, Five Nights at Freddy's, the long-awaited film adaptation of the massively successful video game series, finally dropped. This PG-13 Blumhouse production is about a troubled security guard who starts a job at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, an abandoned restaurant home to several homicidal animatronic robots. The film has been in the works since 2015, but development took forever, going through numerous scripts and directors before filming finally began in February of 2023. And it seemed to be worth the wait for many because it's the highest grossing horror film of the year with $295 million, despite the fact it debuted on streaming service Peacock the exact same day. Five Nights at Freddy's broke tons of box office records. Best opening weekend for a horror film in 2023. Highest Halloween opening weekend. Biggest first day release for a film with same day streaming release. Biggest release for a female directed horror film. Best debut for a PG-13 horror film. It was Blumhouse's highest grossing release worldwide. As for critic and audience reception, that's where things get interesting. Of the 15 movies I'm covering in this video, FNAF has the distinction of being the worst rated one on Metacritic with critics, while simultaneously being the best rated one on Metacritic with audiences. So FNAF fans clearly dig it, while newcomers to the franchise weren't as impressed.
It is going to be a very happy Thanksgiving.
November 17th brought us Thanksgiving, a good old-fashioned holiday slasher film from director Eli Roth. 1 year after a Black Friday riot ends in tragedy, an axe-wielding maniac in a pilgrim costume terrorizes the residents of Plymouth, Massachusetts, looking for revenge. It's based on a fake trailer Roth made for the 2007 film Grindhouse. He had tried multiple times over the years to make the trailer into a full-length movie, and it finally happened in 2023. This over-the-top slasher film was a surprise hit with critics, with the 4th best Rotten Tomatoes score and the 5th best Metacritic rating of the films on this list. So those are the major horror films of 2023. Of these 15 films, 6 were sequels, 1 was a quasi-sequel, 2 were based on short films, 3 were literary adaptations, 1 was a video game adaptation, and 2 were original concepts. Thanks for watching! Here's some other stuff you might enjoy, and until next time, later Danger Seekers.